healthy track. And we all had to work together. We looked out for each other. No griping or teasing when it came to safety or the job. Yeah, we'd push each other's buttons from time to time, but we knew we each depended on the other to get through the day. The new economy, of course, will be all about entrepreneurs and rugged individualists who, in the solitude of their genius, will create vast wealth. But even the pioneers out there on the prairie, the rugged individualists of the 1830s, they had wives who cooked and cleaned and also helped in the harvest. These are the same pioneers who out there on the prairies got together and started towns like Grand Rapids and Granges so they could sell their crops without being robbed blind, and form militias so when they encountered the natives they didn't all perish at once. Without people doing the common work, not one of us could ever strike it rich and hope to keep it. Remember how they all struck it rich in California and they all walked home poor. Common work is the basis for all other work. And those who do it are essential to everyone else, especially those at the top of the chain. You know, in economics, there's a term called the tragedy of the commons. You might have heard about that. It gets bandied about in all the cable news programs. It makes all the pundits sound very smart. It actually has its roots in Aristotle, who observed years ago that what is common to the greatest number has the least care bestowed upon it. Here's why. As individuals, we see our immediate personal needs and desires first, and our common needs second. So, given a choice, we will always feed ourselves and then our neighbor, give to our children, and then give to our community. But there are things that cannot be divided up like that: the air, the water, the land, the roads, schools, sewers, and such. And as long as these come after our personal needs, collectively, eventually they will all erode and become worse and worse and be depleted. Which is why we have governments, after all, to make sure you put your taxes in so that the roads and the sewers and the police and the fire and all those things that none of us want to buy but all of us certainly need get taken care of. I think this is exactly where the fault line is in our political economy right now. Two sides are arguing fundamentally over how much the commons matter. They're even arguing over what the commons are. But this morning I'm reminding us all that much of what we consider lowly and demeaning, the stuff that we would not do unless we absolutely had to, is so essential that we don't realize how much we depend upon it. The railroad tracks, the cleaning up of the garbage, the evacuation of toilets, garbage collection, child care, orderlies in nursing homes get almost nothing, and yet we depend upon them completely for all of our majestic high technology. Of course, the commons is the realm of religion too, which is why I have a stake in this. All religions say everything we own, everything important is something we all have in common, which is my way of saying there's no such thing as private religion. You may have your private beliefs, but it's the commons that holds a group together as religion. Do you know where the word religion comes from? Religare. It's the same word that we get ligament or oblige, L-I-G, which means the thing that connects. Religion connects us to other people, to our community, to our inner selves. It's about what we have in common. And of course, the oldest quarrel in the world is between my religion, which is right about what's true, and yours, which is wrong, because it's about the commons. And I'm not going to talk about that here, but I can suggest that religion is not the only way we strengthen our ligaments of connection to one another. Family, we all come up in favor of family. We come to the defense of even relatives we don't like when we have outsiders. Isn't that true? I can pick on you, but don't let another person say a word against them. Community, our neighborhoods, if we have a neighborhood or if we even know about it. But we all remember when there were kids in our neighborhoods and we would stand up for them when some outsider would come and try to be a threat. Nation, we always rouse to the flag, and well we should. Where we lack the sense of commonness of the commons is in our work. It's every man for himself, right? I'm going to get mine, you get yours. If you're not rich, that's your problem. You just didn't work hard enough. But every worker, as we all know, is connected to every worker. The CIO the CEO at the top of the corner office does not realize that the woman who comes in at 9 o'clock and cleans his office is there, but she is, and if she stopped coming, he would know the next day. And if they all stopped coming, no amount of firing would make the trash go away. What's missing in our world is the sense that we are working for a common good, not just enjoying a common nation. We need a more perfect union. That thing they talk about at the beginning of the Constitution. But I also mean a more perfect labor union in the sense that organized labor has lost ground, and for a lot of reasons. But let's remember that the whole reason there is a weekend is because workers refuse to work 7 days a week. Let's remember that Labor Day exists because workers struck for the dignity of their own leisure. And that things like Social Security and workplace safety and child welfare were the product of labor unions. We all enjoy this commons. Organized labor is not where it used to be, but we all prospered for it. But I want to say that when I say a more perfect union, I mean a more perfect union spiritually, that we get a sense of our individual working lives being connected to other working lives, just as my savings go into the bank there in Bedford Falls and it goes out to loan that house, as Jimmy Stewart reminds us, and It's a Wonderful Life. The new global economy means that we're all connected, but the irony is that we forget that we're just as connected to the person down the street as we are to the supply chain in China or the service center in the Philippines or the mines in Africa or the computer technicians in India. We forget our own communities even as we are aware of others. And though we are more connected than ever, the sense of being connected is weaker and weaker. So I have an idea about how to do that. This is my one practical bit of advice. It's a version of what I did this summer. Job switching. What if we all had to spend at least a day, no, maybe 3 or even 4 days a year, doing someone else's job further down the chain? Something that's below you in every sense of the word. You know, I spent a day cleaning bathrooms by accident. And not only survived, but came away thinking, hey, that was tough stuff, but I can do that. Back in the year 2000, the author Barbara Ehrenreich wrote a book called Nickel and Dimed, in which she went out into the workplace and deliberately took low-wage jobs to figure out what it was like actually to be paid at a minimum wage, how to survive, and discovered that even though she had a PhD in cell biology and was a published author, she did not have a clue about how to live on next to nothing. That it required incredible feats of stamina, focus, memory, quick thinking, and fast learning. In other words, these low-level jobs require a great deal of skill, if not precisely teaching. We might benefit if all of us who worked for a living actually had to work a few days every year further down the food chain. What if I spent a day here working on the building crew, schlepping chairs, polishing floors, emptying trash? It should go the other way, too. People at the, quote, bottom of the work pile should have a chance to come up there and visit with the suits. They'll discover something. They're not all that much better than they think they are. And that it really is work. You know, one of the reasons I love doing this chapel series every year, it's not that I don't preach. I love that part. It's that you preach. And every year, 8 or 9 people come up to me and say, I had no idea how hard this was. You make it look easy. I do. If we knew more about what the other person's job really was, maybe we wouldn't be so cavalier about saying how easy it was to get it, keep it, or how easy it would be to rise above it. Yes, it's time, I think, to ask every citizen to put our own backs into the common work that we so depend on and so forget we depend on. Come to think, most of the problems in our country could be done if we put a little more back into it when we think about it. A little more effort, a little more teamwork, a little more shouldering of the load. Is this a country of every man for himself, or are we really 300 million musketeers in which one is for all and all is for one? I like the other one, but I know that sounds naive. You can't go believing things like that. That's just outrageous. It's just too naive. We have to be more realistic, Fred. And I said, okay, then tell me, was it a little bit naive for someone to write about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness when no one had done it before? That was naive too, wasn't it? And how about that government of the people, by the people, and for the people in the middle of a civil war? That was naive too. Sign me up for the naive people, for the fools who still think that it's possible to be better. That's how it seems to me, at least. I've said too much. Have a great Labor Day. Come back next week. Thank you, Ms. Sloan. You're right. Come back next week when we get back to our work of liberating, animating, and agitating all over the place. I expect you to put your backs into it. I'll see you next week. Now, folks, we're going to sing. We're going to sing hymn number 304, but I want to give you some direction. This is a great hymn by the wonderful writer Don Marquis. If anyone remembers Archie and Mehitabel, it's that guy. This is a really tooth-gritting hymn. It's like, you're going to trudge. You're going to make some work here. This is a hymn you got to work at. But at the end, stay standing and stick with, and then run quickly over to hymn 157, which is a hymn that was actually from the International Workers of the World, the Wobblies. And there's only one verse, but it's a good verse, and we're going to sing that too, okay? So let's sing our first hymn, then I'll introduce our benediction.